Welcome everyone to our official National Numeracy Number Natter for National Numeracy Day. And to kickstart our conversations, I'm going to hand us over to Sam Sims, our Chief Exec.
Thanks, Stevie. I think for me, numbers and maths really helped me to make good decisions throughout every part of my life. I think I also speak to so many people whose experience with numbers and maths came from their experience at school. I was fortunate, I had teachers that really made maths fun and helped me to see the maths in the real world and relate it to that. And I also had friends around me who supported me when I struggled, which I think has made a big difference to how I use and feel confident around using numbers and maths in everyday life. I'm going to hand over to Morris.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I mean, I think because both my parents are fairly academic, I always wanted to be very good at numbers. I don't think it comes to me that naturally, and words don't either because I'm dyslexic, so I'm kind of like in limbo. But I think because I had a desire to and a real sort of love of science in general, I just kind of stuck at it, and managed to, get a reasonable grade at GCSE, and then start doing some science subjects. So I think sort of being anchored in how important numbers are and how sort of amazing they can be when it comes to what science does with numbers. That sort of desire to make sense of the world in that way just kind of kept me going. I will hand over to Paul Foss.
Thanks, Mo. Well, I have a good relationship with numbers, I would say, on the whole. I mean, almost the opposite to you, Mo. I don't think anybody in my family is particularly happy with numbers necessarily, certainly not my parents, but what they did give me was a love of learning, and my school had a kind of love of learning, so I enjoyed that, and I just happened to be good at maths. And my job now, I'm a data analyst, so I use numbers all day, every day. But I'm not afraid to make mistakes, and it was just occurring to me there that looking at the picture of myself on the screen, if you look, I put these shelves up behind, and those ones on that side, pretty good bookshelves, you can fit a book in. Those ones are now the DIY sort of crafting area, because you can't fit a book in, because I couldn't use numbers properly to put those up. So I'm not afraid to make a mistake. I have to stare at my mistakes every day. I'll hand over to Lizzie.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, I think in retrospect, I've been quite lucky in that I've never felt that thing necessarily of that you are either an English person or a maths person. I did like both up until A level, and then went off and did English at uni. But then during uni, I tutored in an English and maths tutoring centre, and there I really noticed with the kids that there was still this attitude that you were either one or the other, and that was in kids between like reception and year 7 and 8. So I was thinking about that in terms of, was I surprised when I learned about the 49% of the working age population having the levels of a primary school child, and thinking that somewhere these kids absorbed this idea that you could only be one or the other, and that obviously that's then going to follow people through. So it was the being surprised by the stat, but then actually once you start thinking about it, you kind of see why that might be the stat. And yeah, just noticing that more and more. And then yeah, feeling lucky myself in retrospect, but yeah, that's just what I've been thinking about it. I'll hand over to Maya.
Thanks, Lizzie. Yeah, for me, I can definitely say that I was one of those people when we were taught pi in school, and I was like, why do I need to know this? I'm never going to use like maths because that's not the field I want to go into. And I think from a young age, I was always more of a creative person rather than academic person, and I always like to get hands-on. And I never really thought about numbers until I started working in a pub and I had to work out change. But actually, probably most predominantly since I started working at National Numeracy, I started clocking how many times in a day-to-day, I actually use numbers and in different formats as well. So actually, I think the older I get, the more I realise how much I use numbers personally. And I think it is kind of an eye-opener because, like I say, I was one of those people that didn't really think I was ever going to use numbers or maths or numeracy when I'm older. And here I am using it in so many different ways. But yeah, that's my experience. So I'll pass on to Beth.
Thank you. For me, I'd say I've always enjoyed maths and enjoyed problems with numbers. I know that I was very fortunate growing up that both of my parents really encouraged me in maths. And I think that was really powerful because for my mum, she'd really struggled with maths growing up, had to resit lots of tests, but eventually, like as an adult, once she'd had children, went on to do a maths-based degree. So I think I was really lucky that I was having that messaging all the time that you can get better at maths, you can have a fixed mind, you can have a growth mindset, and anybody can be a maths person. And when I went on to become a primary school teacher, that was really something I had at the front of my mind of trying to pass that message on. And I will pass over to Miller.
Thanks, Beth. So my story with numbers is that I really like maths and numbers now, but when I was around 11, I think, I just didn't enjoy maths at all. I had a maths teacher who wasn't particularly interested in us understanding what he was explaining in class. And as a result, I was not particularly good at it. And I remember specifically my mum telling me, oh, you know, you're very good in English and languages, so you're clearly not a number person, but it's fine because you're good at something else. And I kind of accepted that. And, you know, at 11, you're just like, well, yay, my mum just told me that I'm not a numbers person, so it means that I don't even have to try and be good at maths. But then a couple of years later, I started high school and my parents realized that that was kind of holding me back a little bit. So they got me a maths tutor, which was really good. And after a couple of months of weekly private lessons, everything just made sense. So I could understand what maths was about. I could understand, I just had a better relationship with numbers. And from that point on, I just got on with it and just really liked maths, and, you know, went into uni, studied marketing, so did exams in statistics and stuff like that, and never had any issues. So for me, it's really important that people understand that there isn't such a thing as being numbers person. And, you know, sometimes I think about, you know, I now work for National Numeracy, how ironic that is. If I could tell my 11-year-old me that this was happening, this would be just so funny. So yeah, this is my story, and I'm gonna hand over to Emmy.
Thanks, Miller. I was always quite happy with maths. I did fairly well in my GCSE. It kind of never really worried me. And then 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and all of a sudden I had to be quite confident with numbers, and I kind of lost a lot of my confidence because I was handed this drug, insulin, that if I took too much, it could kill me. If I didn't take enough, it could kill me. And overnight, I'm suddenly having to worry about my blood glucose levels and how many carbohydrates are in things and ratios and correction factors and all that kind of thing. So I suddenly was like, maths is running through my brain constantly every day for the last 12 years. And technology helps massively. There is some great technology out there that really helps me calculate these things and does a lot for me. But I still need to be aware and know what's going on. So I've had to become quite confident with numbers and trust myself with the numbers, which has definitely been a bit of a learning curve. And even now, I still sometimes like text my mum to double check things, and, you know, I'll get my husband to read the packet to check that I'm reading it right. So yeah, it's really important, I think, and I've been trying to encourage my children to kind of show them that numbers aren't just the math they learn at school, that it's everywhere in life, and, you know, not just for my diabetes, but for cooking, for time, for, you know, getting the bus and reading the timetable. So yeah, I think it definitely knocked my confidence, but over the last 12 years, I've definitely built that confidence up a bit more. So yeah, I'm going to pass to Cassia.
Thank you. I used to really enjoy numbers a lot when I was at school until I was about 14 or 15, and then when I remember really clearly struggling with something and asking my new teacher why I had to do it and how it would be relevant in life, and she reacted really badly and said you just have to do it, and thought I was just being a stroppy teenager, which I was, but it still immediately switched me off. And so then when I didn't do very well in my GCSEs, I then felt really ashamed. I did the worst out of all of my friends, and ever since then I always thought I'm just crap with numbers and that's me. And then over the next few years I actually got into loads of debt, but I managed to change very slowly by setting goals and breaking things down into really small chunks. And over the first half of my 20s, I kind of got into a worse and worse position, but then the second half got better and better, and managed to achieve some quite significant goals, like saving up to buy for a house and to go traveling. And it was just really amazing seeing how incremental steps could really make a big difference. And also I started to just talk a bit more about confidence with numbers with different people, and realised that it doesn't always work to compare yourself to one group of people who are really, really successful. You shouldn't always look up, you should look sideways. And so that's all been really good. And then it was just amazing when I found this job at National Numeracy, because then I could really, like, the stats are shocking, but then I could really see how my experience wasn't that special, and that there are loads of people that could be helped, loads more. Like, I'd always thought it was more niche than it is, but it's not. So it's just really nice to be able to to work somewhere where we can hopefully help a lot more people to have, maybe have a bit of a similar journey than I had. And now I use numbers a lot in my day-to-day life with fundraising for the charity, and counting the number of partners we get on board is always quite nice, and counting all the different ways that they work with us and the impact that we achieve together. So there's I think numbers can be great. You don't have to love them, but you can like them, and that's good enough. So handing over to Sally.
Thanks, Cassia. I think for me, I always really enjoyed maths at school. I never really thought about myself as a kind of English or maths person, but I just enjoyed maths more. And I've always enjoyed numbers, and a bit like Maya said, I used to work in a bar from university, and before the days when the till calculated everything for you, and just actually having to work all that out in your head, it used to give me a real buzz, because you get some really complicated drinks orders and you just have to add it up. And it really shocked me actually recently. I went into a local bar and I ordered 2 pints of lager, and they were £5.45 each. And the poor girl was getting all flustered, and in the end she said to me, "Oh my God, I'll just need to check the maths," and she got a calculator out. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, 2 times £5.45, and she couldn't work it out without a calculator, which really shocked me. So when I started working at National Numeracy, I was absolutely totally shocked by the situation. But also totally shocked, and continue 8 years on to be totally shocked by the amount of anxiety and fear that people have towards maths and numbers. I had no idea that maths anxiety was a thing, or it even existed, because it was not something I'd experienced. So I think it's been a complete eye-opener to me. So it's been really lovely to be doing what I do, to try and help and support people to move beyond that and give them a chance to kind of re-look at the relationship with numbers and see that they can actually do it and move on, which is what I've really enjoy about my job, I think, more than anything else. So that's me, and I'll hand over to Lisa.
Thanks, Ali. I've always been fairly confident with numbers, and I did a computer science degree and did computer programming, so I kind of had to use numbers more than just ones and zeros throughout my job. But I think when I became a teacher, I realized how important confidence was, and how children get a message, or they interpret a message as whether they're good or bad at maths. And that's been amplified through joining National Numeracy and finding out about people's confidence levels, and also realizing that there's not a stereotype of certain people are good at maths and certain people aren't. It crosses all demographics in terms of where people's number confidence is. And that's been really interesting to me. And I really think the work that we're doing here at National Numeracy is helping people, and focusing more on their confidence has been a big thing for me, and not just whether you can do the maths or not do the maths. It's about having the confidence to try, and that growth mindset that I think is really, really important, and sometimes gets missed when people are talking about whether they're good or bad at maths. So that's my 2 cents worth, and I will hand over to Ellie.
Thank you, Lisa. I've always enjoyed maths. I went to uni to do maths, but despite that, I've always had trouble managing my own money and my own finances. I used to, when I was at uni, I didn't want to look at my bank account and I would actively avoid it. But in the last few years, I've started using Excel and budgeting each month, which has really helped me. As well as not being as strict with myself with budgets. If I go over, then that just means I need to increase the budget for next month for things like food. And yeah, that's helped make my life a lot easier and help me manage my money a lot more effectively. And I'm passing on to Tom.
Cheers, Ali. My relationship with maths was a bit tricky, really. I think when I got to secondary school, I had a teacher I didn't really have very good chemistry with, and I think that led to me maybe not paying attention as well as I should have, and maybe almost rejecting maths, I suppose, because I related it to her. And I think a lot of people have that experience. And then I was moved down a set in maths and got a new teacher, and that kind of repaired my relationship with it, really. And now I'm quite confident, I'm quite happy with it, and I think I was actually very lucky to go through that process and have that transition, because if I'd stayed where I was, maybe I wouldn't feel this way now, and I'd be a bit more, I'd struggle more with sort of daily life and normal tasks that you have to go through as an adult. So I do feel quite lucky about that, really, and I'll pass over to Anna.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I think for me, like a few people have said, I definitely subscribe to that idea of there being like maths people and like creative people. And even though I could do maths, I always identified more as the creative, artsy kind of person. So it was never something that I really focused on. So it was kind of a surprise to end up working at National Numeracy for me and people who knew me, But having said that, I mean, even though it was never one of my favourite subjects, it was never something that I had a particular problem with, and it is something that I use all the time in my job. As a project manager, there are numbers all over the place, managing budgets and setting targets and reporting on impact measurement and that kind of thing. Lots of percentages, lots of Excel spreadsheets. I quite like an Excel spreadsheet, actually. It's quite like working on a puzzle sometimes. I quite enjoy working through a problem to kind of find the answer. So yeah, definitely a useful skill to have, and something that actually in real life I enjoy more than I think I thought I would at school. So yeah, if I hand over to Paul Milner.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, I've always felt good about numbers and always felt quite fortunate to be confident with them. And I think I used to think I'm naturally good at maths. I think I actually thought that quite cockily. But now, in retrospect, I can trace it back, and I don't think it was that. I think it was my parents. I think it was specifically my dad, who worked in an office, and he could see how often or how important using numbers and being confident with numbers was in his job. And it was my father encouraging me in the evenings and weekends with bits of numbers and encouraging my confidence. That actually, in retrospect, was what gave me that confidence. And I then sort of felt one step ahead. So I then relaxed with it and just had a really good, confident attitude with it. But then when I went to work in retail, like starting on the shop floor, as Maya and Beth mentioned, and you did have to calculate change in your head, and just working within a team and seeing how different people reacted to that. And then right through to when I was working at head office, and you'd sit in the boardroom and conversations about VAT would start up, and the different levels of confidence and mystification and embarrassment around the room. It was just fascinating, which led me to being really passionate about this, the power of confidence with numbers for us all. So I think I'll hand over to Stevie.
Thanks, everyone. It's so nice to hear such, or so interesting to have such a diverse range of experiences within, just our organisation. My experience is kind of quite up and down. Yeah, I guess my relationship with numbers is quite up and down. I thought I was quite good when I was a little kid, and then became quite aware that numbers were basically there to kind of represent where I wasn't doing so well, because I was kind of amazing at everything apart from maths, and every time I did anything mathsy, the numbers just showed me that I was rubbish. But one thing that I realized looking back now is that both my parents were quite young when they had me, and they were still at uni or still kind of learning for their career, and so they were kind of very much in that learning space. So if they didn't know the answer, they were quite prepared to sort of figure out what the answer was and to help me. And I think that confidence to find out what you don't know has stuck with me in all different areas of life. And once I was outside of the school system, I kind of had that as a habit, and so whenever I had to manage my own finances or even help my own kids to learn, I just kind of automatically, rather than panicking or feeling scared as I had at school, I just sort of thought, well, I can figure out how to do this. And I think having the confidence to find out what I don't know has really helped me. And then I was just thinking about it now while we were talking, and Cassia, you kind of sparked this, that now it's really nice because the numbers are kind of showing us like our successes, like with National Numeracy Day, the numbers are amazing, we've helped loads of people, but being able to put those numbers into the personal context of like, we've helped that many people who feel like all of these different ways that we've just discussed to actually improve their confidence. That's really nice. So yeah, that's a proper up and down journey for me. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for taking part in the Big Number Natter for National Numeracy Day. And we'll be sharing this with everyone later. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Bye.
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 Thanks all. Bye.